Well, if you thought that Donald Trump would take the hint when Chief Justice Roberts told him to pump the brakes and stop attacking federal judges, stop calling for their impeachment, and use the normal, good old-fashioned appellate method instead, you'd be wrong. Because not only did Donald Trump, as I reported earlier, go on his favorite interviewer, the Fox News interviewer of Laura Ingraham, and say, I didn't realize that. Was he talking to me? He just said that for 2 centuries that impeachment is not the way to go. It's appeals. But he didn't say my name, did he? I was quick. I missed it. So that was the jibber jabber of Donald Trump stammering after he got hit in the forehead, boom, with a 2x4 from Chief Justice Roberts. But then they trotted out that rabid puppy, Carolyn Levitt, press secretary, world's youngest press secretary, copyright pending, who took to the podium and decided that she would start blurting out all sorts of whatever they shoved into her head before she took the podium. She then vomits out. She's not a lawyer. She's like 30 years old. She's barely been a press secretary, and she'll say anything that Stephen Miller or somebody else in the administration tells her to say. Today's talking point was that liberal, lefty, activist, Democratic judges are standing in the way of the duly elected president. First of all, the judge she named by name today and doxed him, Judge Boasberg, was appointed by a Republican. Okay? And the fact that 67% of all injunctions this century have been against the Trump administration, maybe you should tell your boss to stop being so friggin' insane and stop trying to lurch from one constitutional abuse of power crisis to the next, and maybe we won't have so many injunctions. You're on Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. Let's get to it. Carolyn Levitt is the best thing that ever happened to the Democrats and people that are suing the administration because she says stupid shit out loud, and they're able to use that stupid shit in courts. That's a legal term. We've already seen it once. She was so terrible and said so many bad things in social media that a judge entered an injunction based on it. And now you have her up at the podium because somebody was stupid enough to ask a question. So all you got to do to wind her up, just ask her a question. And here we go. The law and politics, the world of the judiciary, according to Carolyn Levitt, that great constitutional scholar. Here's a clip.
Garrett.
I have one other question, but I want to follow up on Katie's question, actually. You said the mass deportation campaign would continue, but she asked about the flights specifically. Will those flights to El Salvador continue while this case is being appealed?
We don't have any flights planned specifically, but we will continue with the mass deportations. And I would just like to point out that the judge in this case is essentially trying to say that the president doesn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our American soil. That is an egregious abuse of the bench. This judge does not have that authority. It is the opinion of this White House and of this administration, and that's why we're fighting this in court. And it's very, very clear that this is an activist judge who is trying to usurp the president's authority. Under the Alien Enemies Act, the president has this power, and that's why this deportation campaign has continued. And this judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You took me right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Well, let me just say something to that effect, Garrett. 67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. 60% of the injunctions by partisan activists in the judicial branch have come against President Donald Trump, and 92% of those have been from Democrat-appointed judges. This is a clear, concerted effort by leftists who don't like this president and are trying to impose or slow down his agenda.
So, given that, do you think it's a good use of Congress's time and the president's political capital to try to impeach and remove a federal judge, which would take 67 votes you're unlikely to get in the Senate?
Well, look, the president has made it clear that he believes this judge in this case should be impeached, and he has also made it clear that he has great respect for the Chief Justice John Roberts, and it's incumbent upon the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges.
Now, I don't know if we should call for her resignation or we should put a marble statue, a brass statue of her in front of the White House. because she is the gift that keeps on giving. First of all, most of what she said is wrong. Yeah. The judges like Boasberg is like best friends with Brett Kavanaugh. I don't know if anybody gave her that part of the memo. They were roommates. Yeah. Kavanaugh, who was put on the bench by Trump. Roberts, who's the chief judge, loves Boasberg. He's elevated him twice to different positions on the court. Yeah. So he's friends with Roberts. He's friends with Kavanaugh. Trump needs Kavanaugh and Roberts to support his policies. He thinks he's going to get it now after Roberts takes a moment and all of his political capital to issue a historic statement where he rebukes and criticizes the president of the United States in response to Donald Trump going after Boasberg. And what does this administration do in response? They trot out Carolyn Levitt to go after Boasberg and do it by name. Now we know what's going to happen. Boasberg's going to have to double up on his Marshal Service protective group, because I'm sure he and his family are now subject to assassination threats and attacks. You know, they're trying to compromise the independence of the federal judiciary. And this ridiculous statement that you heard, 67%, which she then made it 60% when she repeated it because she can't remember it, of injunctions this century are against Trump. All right. First of all, that's not our fault. That's like the guy that murders his parents and then asks for forgiveness from the court because he's an orphan. He caused this problem. If he would stop pushing the button that's obviously marked constitutional crisis, we would stop being in the constitutional crisis. Who told him that his powers were unlimited and unfettered and could not be? Whoever told Donald Trump that he could act with impunity and not have the federal judge oversee his policies told him a lie, should be fired, committed malpractice. But somebody told him this because he thinks, as the president of the United States, because he got a quote unquote mandate and he got a lot of votes, and he won a number of counties, and he won the 7 battleground states, then that means judges should just step out of his way, give him wide berth, let him do whatever he wants. That's not how the co-equal branches of government works. That's not how the separation of powers works. That's not how the friction that's supposed to exist between the branches and among the branches in order for there to be checks and balance works. You notice you never hear Caroline Levitt or anybody in the administration talk about checks and balances or how or why their president in particular needs to be checked and balanced. You never do. That's why Carol Levitt stands up there so that it can be used on cue by Donald Trump's paid social media influencers who work for the White House office and communications office, right? They have a rapid response team on the go. They push the button and 5 things happen at the same time. MAGA Congress people start drawing up articles of impeachment against federal judges. People like Chuck Grassley in the Senate start arguing about activist judges. Paid influencers, social media influencers, like the opposite of Midas Touch and Legal AF. They start bashing the judge and calling for his impeachment. Elon Musk starts calling for his impeachment. Carolyn Levitt starts calling for his impeachment. It becomes this echo chamber. And then Donald Trump in an interview gets to tell Laura Ingraham, I don't know, it's not just me. A lot of people are calling for the impeachment. Everybody that you created that echo chamber, that biofeedback loop that we're listening to. And Carolyn Levitt, because she's too smart by half and has decided that she's some sort of constitutional scholar, to take on, I don't know who, Chief Judge Jeb Boasberg, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, perhaps? Because that other half-wit that occupies an office in the White House, who's not a lawyer, named Stephen Miller, who ran a law firm, because he told you to say that? We're going to get to the bottom of all this very quickly as we descend into the remaining rings of hell being dragged down there by Donald Trump. He wants this constitutional crisis. He's created this constitutional crisis. And we're going to see what's going to happen next. But I can tell you one thing. It's not helping to have Carol Levitt take to the airwaves and bash by name a federal judge after Chief Justice Roberts told her not to. If they don't get Roberts and Kavanaugh, they're not going to get their policies upheld by the Supreme Court. And they are not covering themselves in any glory. We're going to continue to follow what happens, not just at the D.C. Court of Appeals. And forget this argument about federal judges being handpicked in forum shopping. No one forum shopped better or more than the MAGA when they went after Biden policies. How many times did they file cases in Louisiana, in Alabama, in Texas, before Judge Kaczmarek, right? Before Judge Reed O'Connor, in order to get what they knew was going to be an anti-Biden position, a pro-Trump position, and then take it up to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. It happened every day, every way. They're just pissed off because now we're going to our judges, the ones that were appointed by Democrats in the New England states, in the original colonies, in Washington State and California, in Maryland, in D.C. Half the cases are being filed in D.C. because they got to be filed in D.C. because they're up against the federal government. That's the best place and the most likely place to be sued if you're the federal government. So we're going to continue to follow Carolyn Levitt and these amazing press conferences, the gifts that keep on giving, right here on Legal AF as we explain how they impact law and politics. I'm Michael Popok. Until my next report. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.